All right, welcome back, everyone. We have Professor Ngugi wa Thiong'o, as I promised everyone. And when I made the announcement this morning, one Kenyan wrote back and said, he's the greatest critical writer Kenya has ever produced. I like to think of him as the greatest chronicler of history. Professor Ngugi wa Thiong'o, everyone, is tonight and the first guest on With All Due Respect. I just want to walk your bit, and get your reflections from your writing. And let's start from 1962 and the first play that, was done in the Black Hermit. And the themes then were, about just before the independence in the region, there were questions about black and white identity questions and sort of like a focus of tribalism.
Yeah.
What was that about?
Yeah, The Black Hermit is a play. It's my first, it was my third play when I was a student at Makerere.
Yes.
But my first major play, because it was 3-act play, and it was meant to celebrate Uganda's independence. Remember, Tanzania had just become independent. Ghana, of course, 1957. Tanzania, 1962, I believe. And then Uganda. Kenya would come slightly later, December of the same year, 1963. Yeah. So, but I was concerned with independence as a whole. Okay. Yeah. And at that time, I was very concerned about ethnic tensions. Okay.
Yes.
And racial tensions as well, but mostly ethnic tensions. Yeah. So I explored that theme in the Black Hermit. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And 2 years later, I believe.
By the way, it was my first play to be performed at Kampala National Theatre.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we go to 1964 and your first published work, Weep Not Child. And in this, you're concerned about, the land issues and the question the colonial times are living, on their wake as they live.
Yeah.
Talk to me around that.
That one, yeah. Yeah, 90s, yeah. By the way, Weep Not Child, which I published in April 1964. But I wrote it in Makerere in 1962. Before, first, The River Between was the first. I wrote The River Between first. By the December 1961, I had completed it. And then in 1962, I started on Weep Not Child. But they were published in the Weep Not Child first in 1964. And then in 1965, The River Between. Weep Not Child, I was really more concerned. I was looking at my life, if you like, through the state of emergency in Kenya.
Yes.
Yeah. Because our generation went through years when there was blood in the streets of Kenya between soldiers of the Kenya Land and Freedom Army and the soldiers of the British colonial state. Yeah.
Yeah.
So as we went to school, we could hear gunfire, or cries, or bodies of Africans hung from trees by the British colonial state. Yeah, yeah. So I was trying to capture that period.
Yes.
What did it feel like to go to school under those circumstances? But it was also the time of nationalism.
Yeah.
Jomo Kenyatta was a big figure, right?
Yeah.
So you read Weep Not Child, Jomo Kenyatta, especially his dramatics, like when he comes from London after so many years, he comes to Mombasa and he bears down and catches Kenyan soil. Yeah, that's that was so dramatic,
Yes.
and it captured my imagination. So I wanted to capture all that, me growing up, going to school under those circumstances, but also against the background of the drama unfolding in a country.
Right, and then the theme then in 1967 moves to A Grain of Wheat, and in this I feel the sense of the return of the Mau Mau from the Mau Mau freedom fighters from the forest. You're talking about the new government and the failure to accept these Mau Mau who have just sort of come from the forest, fought for something, and in many ways, from my interpretation, it's sort of like the beginning or the seedlings of the death of merit in this country.
Yeah, I would say A Grain of Wheat. By the way, A Grain of Wheat, I wrote it when I was a postgraduate student in Leeds. And by that time, Kenya was already independent, okay? And I was looking back, and already I could sense, I didn't say I could see, but I could sense something, and it was very difficult to describe what it was. I could only try to use my imagination to capture the sense of unease that I felt. For instance, I did not feel the soldiers of the Kenya Land and Freedom Army were given the status they should have been given. Yeah, because they had fought. Remember, they did something which is spectacular for the entire continent.
Yes.
They took on the British Empire. Yeah.
And they won for all intents and purposes.
And which has just conquered Hitler.
Yes.
So these Kenyan soldiers, ordinary men and women, saying that they can fight against other empire. I mean, Kenyans should really be very extremely proud of that pride. That's we can do it.
Yes.
So that we can do a spirit of honor Kenyan people. I felt that at the independence I felt unease. So in my novel, I was trying to explore that unease which I was feeling at the time. Yeah.
So Prof, I'm bringing you to this memory lane because I want to hear your thoughts about Kenya at 58 and all the themes that you've explored in your work and as you say, prophesied and tried to see things that you couldn't quite describe. But at the moment, Kenya is 58. You protested very loudly in 1969 when Jaramogi Odinga was refused an opportunity to address students in Nairobi University. It was a question of freedom of speech. You ended up, protesting loudly, but today, the son of Jaramogi, if you like, and the son of Jomo have sort of made up. What do you feel that or this moment presents? Is it what we're looking for?
No. Of course, I want to see unity of Kenyan people. But what I'm looking for in A Grain of Wheat and throughout is the ordinary man and woman of Kenya, what they now call Wajiko, okay? Right? Wajiko is the one who had taken up arms to fight against the British. Wajiko is the one who was organizing in the streets, okay? Without Wajiko, there will be no independence, so to speak, So I wanted to see, and I still like to see, policies, economic policies, political policies, cultural policies that empower the ordinary woman and man of Kenya from Mombasa through the highlands to the Great Lakes.
Do you think that has happened, Prof?
No, I don't think so. For instance, first of all, I can't really comment on what is going on because I've been away from Kenya for a long time. So whatever I say, please take with a grain of
a grain of wheat.
But I can talk not only about Kenya, but Africa as a whole. Yeah.
Yes, please.
And if you remember, well, you may not remember because you may not But those of us who were born then
Yes.
can remember the pride. The pride that Kenyans had. The pride of even the leadership
Yes.
taken to Pambe Kapenguria
Yes.
and saying, imprison me if you like, right? That's all they said.
Wow.
That very, very powerful.
Yes. Yes.
All the Kapenguria 7. But I feel that pride, we can do it spirit, is lost in Africa of after independence. For instance, who controls our economy, right? Who controls our banking system? Okay, there's so many things. What about the land question, for instance?
Yes.
Okay. What about our pride as Kenyans? What about our languages as Kenyans?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, so I want to see a Kenya which is in an Africa which is proud of itself, whose leadership stride the world with representing, say, Africa. Okay.
Yes.
And that pride can only come from the power of the people, right? We fought against the British. It was the power of the people that made it possible, right?
Right.
That power of the people is the only one which can make Kenya and Africa stand strong in the world. But we cannot do that as beggars, right?
Absolutely.
We must make our own things, right? Kenyan soldiers of the Kenya Land Freedom Army in the forest, in the mountains, they were making guns under those circumstances, right? They were making their own weapons under very difficult circumstances.
Yeah.
Where is that pride?
Prof.
I remember, let me just say one thing which I remember because I think it's very important.
Yes.
I remember once they were selling newspapers in Limuru, I remember this, and there was not even a salesperson. They would put the newspapers outside, and people come and pick a newspaper and pay, leave money there.
Wow.
Now, that pride, that sense of no corruption was there. But after independence, in many African countries now, corruption has become an ideology of the ruling powers. Okay?
Yes.
We have the oil, we have gold, we have diamonds, we have everything. Okay?
Yes.
Who mines that gold, that oil? Okay? Who go to Kenya or in the capital of Africa?
Yes.
And see, look at who owns the banks. Okay? Then go to London or New York and see whether you can find a single African-owned bank, for instance.
No, you can't
So
find
the
that.
financial institution that control
Yes.
our Kenya, are they owned by Kenyans, for instance?
Yes, thank you very much, Prof, for your very valid reflections. I could listen to you for hours. I want to commit that we need to bring you again because there are many young people who've asked us to create time online to discuss with you. So we'll do this, but I needed to get your reflection tonight. Thank you very much for your time, Prof.
Oh, have you done? Oh, I was going to say, please, and look at what I've written recently.
All right.
It's called KW.
Yes.
And it's got one sentence which I want to leave to Kenyans.
Please go ahead.
Modo ne modo niudo ado areagi. A human is a human because of other humans. And we have to say the same thing for Kenya.
Yes.
a Kenyan is a Kenyan because of other Kenyans. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you very much. I look forward to read this book.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's also in English as the Perfect Nine. So you can read it Kenda Moyuru or Perfect Nine. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Professor Ngugi wa Thiong'o, everyone, with the new book, The Perfect Nine. Looking forward to reading that and getting to intersect and interject everything that the Prof talked about. We'll find him and bring him again for a longer time so that we can hear his reflections.
There's a special kind of freedom that comes with owning a property. All the essential amenities such as security, water, electricity, solar streetlights and motorable roads. Own a plot of land at the Garden of Joy off Kangundo Road. Invest 630k deposit and enjoy your freedom with 19k cashback. Call us on 0790 300 300.
Jina langu naitwa Esther Jerry. Napenda kutumia Tunukiwa sana. Na inatumia kwa kupigia customers wangu, kuitisha vitu sokoni.
Wakenya wengi wanaendelea kuzawadika kila siku kwa kutumia Tunukiwa. Piga *444# ili utunukiwe leo.
Just one capful of Dettol is enough to disinfect surfaces and protect your family and your home. Dettol, tested effective against COVID-19.
Weka Collabo na Shell, Shinda Fuso FI is back and bigger. Weka Collabo na Shell Fuels plus Shell Lubricants, Africa's Oshopata convenience shop. To enter the draw, dial *384*200#, enter the code from your voucher and follow the prompts. Terms and conditions apply.
Umefanya?
Kuhusu nini?
Usijifanye. Umefanya nini?
Unazungumzia nini?
Wale nimekutafuta.
Umenipata, niambie.
Tunaweza date.
Tumuuliza?
All right, a human is a human because of other humans. That's Professor Ngugi wa Thiong'o there in his reflections, Kenya at 58. This is With All Due Respect. Now to introduce the rest of the panel, I have with me in studio Jerotich Sei, active citizen.
Yes.
And joining us via Zoom is Mordecai Ogada, who's a public intellectual. Lady, gentlemen, karibuni sana. The question that I want us to push through and get to understand and try to bring out the meat in what is the problem with Kenya at 58, what is the opportunity Kenya at 58. Mordecai, if I could start with you, very quickly, if we were to set the stage, Kenya at 58, where are we? Are we fair? Are we done?
I think Kenya at 58 is doing pretty poorly. But not all hope is lost. I think we've had the 58 years, and there's a generation somewhere in the middle of that 58 years that we have completely lost and have not managed to make their mark on the growth of this country and the growth of our societies. Partly because there's a sort of hegemony on ideas that has been held by a very similar group of people. for these past 58 years. And there is now need for us to break out from under that hegemony and get the new thinking into our public discourse. So there's still hope for us, but we are actually struggling, Kenya, at 58, especially intellectually. Intellectually, I think we've really stagnated as a nation.
Right. Jerotich, for you, there's hope, but you're struggling. Would you say, this is a dim view of where things are? There are many things to celebrate, surely.
No, I actually think Dr. Ogada is being a little bit too optimistic about where we happen to be. But first of all, I mean, happy Madaraka to everybody. So many people have contributed to bring Kenya to where it is today. And it's important for us to recognize those patriots, those heroes and sheroes who have, over the years, brought us to where we are. But it was very inspiring to listen to Professor Ngugi wa Thiong'o, and he said that it is Wanjiku who brought about independence. Without Wanjiku, there would be no freedom. And with all due respect, it is not yet Uhuru. We are struggling. If we bring the narrative back to Wanjiku and what Wanjiku wants, and listening to the celebrations and the speeches and so on today in Kisumu, I know that people are grappling with more basic issues. We talked about the macro. I heard about the launch of macro initiatives and ferries and railways and what. We heard about the port. But I was saying, what about the price of bread that's going up? What about the fact that we cannot afford oil, fuel, gas, electricity, school fees? Healthcare is a mess. When you bring it down to the very granular issues that everyday Wanjikus struggle with, it is not yet Uhuru. And Honorable Raila Odinga said that the 58 years that we have been in this space of independence was all about eliminating ignorance, poverty and disease. Yeah. That should be, or those three should be the things that we're looking at today to understand how far we have come with the independence project. Have we eradicated disease? Look at COVID. Look at the chaotic scenes today in Kisumu. It horrifies me that by next week there will not be, in fact, I hear there's already no beds available. So you look at it and you say we have a healthcare system that is not able to deal with this pandemic. We have poverty of the highest levels, famine, people out of work. In fact, the heroes today who we should even be talking about would be, for example, the Kitengela Bar Owners Association. I don't know if anyone noticed, but on the 19th of April, a stay was issued stopping, not a stay, it was an order, conservatory orders, stopping KRA from implementing the 1% on gross earnings. And the Kitengela Bar Owners Association, because they represent the Wanjikos there who are working, who are hustling, SMEs, saying, if you tax us and we're making no money, we're dead, we're finished, kaput. And they're the heroes who took KRA to court. And they have found a small reprieve for those millions of people who would have been affected by this 1%. Yeah. So when you look at it and you listen to the speeches today, they're not at all consistent or in keeping with the realities of Kenyans on the ground.
Let's talk about the consistency or the consistency there on Dr. Ogada. The BBI, as it's pushed, because you have to dispense off with the BBI, is that, and the President put quite clearly, that stopping the BBI is an affront to development, stops progress, and essentially stops government from operating. So in essence, the political construct for the BBI is that BBI is the vehicle through which that this country progresses and this country grows. So, straight question for you, Ogada Mordecai. The stopping BBI, if BBI does not go through as it has been, projected, we will not have development. So those who are opposing BBI, Jerotich, part of that, they are essentially opposing development, opposing growth and opportunity for Kenyans.
Thank you. The BBI is a recipe for feudalism. It's in my opinion, it's a really primitive document and a very crass way of trying to corner or corral the leadership of this country into a select group of people for perpetuity. So yes, the BBI is a vehicle, but I think we should choose to board another vehicle, because it's a vehicle that it's already owned by some people. And there are some of us who never get to be out of the back seat, or some of us will always be passengers on the roof or hanging off the back of it. So I think the BBI is the will of the people, but of a very small group of people.
Yeah.
And that's the fact of it. So development can and will occur with or without it, because it's driven, like Professor Ngugi said, and Jerotich also alluded to. Development of a nation is not just infrastructure. We have a leadership that is obsessed with these optics. Development is well-paid teachers, well-paid nurses, affordable bread that Jerotich alluded to. But you see, affordable bread cannot be shown on CNN. A well-paid teacher cannot be, you can't put a banner on his back with the poster of an MP. So the problem is that we are in love with optics and the appearance of development rather than human development itself. Infrastructure never fed anyone, but people who are thriving are the ones who need to use infrastructure. If you build wonderful roads and we can't afford fuel, it's not much good to any of us. So I think we have to take a more holistic view of what development is, what leadership is. Leadership is the mechanic doing his job well, the doctor doing his job well, the farmer producing good food and in good quantities. All that is leadership. Leadership is not sort of feudal lords coming to a high table carrying their tribesmen in baskets for sale and trade at the table. So I think the BBI, what startled me as a lay person is that legally it looked very shaky with my sort of zero knowledge of law. I had so many questions, and when the judgment came out, it sort of just bore out some of the things that I found disturbing about it. So a rose by any name smells as sweet, and any nasty substance by any name smells nasty. So what the judges said or didn't say did not make the BBI good or bad.
Right.
What its qualities or lack thereof.
Right. There's still the urgent question, Jerotich, that we still have very confrontational elections. And it happens. And one of the things, and we've seen in the last elections, it's an urgent political question. The question on how every election year, Kenyans still, either by inducement or by the political, sort of wave, find it within ourselves to attack each other, make each other, insecure. Businesses during those times insecure. So to the exact point of dealing with the questions of bring everyone into the house and deal with this problem, then perhaps in those lenses BBI has a point, doesn't it?
Absolutely not. In fact, today just crystallized yet again how important the actions of groups such as Linda Katiba and others continue to be. Because, if anything, we've always said, at the heart of conflict and violence in Kenya is electoral injustice, not tribalism. Because think about it, electoral processes start at basic nominations. So if I'm running for a seat and I'm being nominated, assuming that I'm in my home county and my home area, who am I fighting with when it comes to nominations? Where does the corruption begin and the electoral injustice? It's not me, so if one wants to say, yes, I come from this particular county, it's me fighting against you, James, and we're from the same county, ostensibly from the same ethnicity.
Yes.
So when you look at issues of electoral injustice, that is when you begin to say, what is IBC's role? What is IBC doing? Not who is Cherotich as a Kalenjin fighting, or who is smart as, I won't state who you, where you're smart, where is smart coming from? So it is electoral injustice that is at the heart of every single thing that has gone wrong in this country. And look, people can shake hands all they like. They can even have the 9-point agenda that was clearly articulated. Why that had to springboard and translate into a complete massacre of the Constitution through this thing called BBI is, for me, where the hoodwink and the nefarious actions start. And let me say something, actually reflecting, and Mordecai was speaking about the judge's ruling. One of the things they touched on is, what is the president's role? Is he a state officer? Is he a private citizen? Today, he actually exemplified what it was that the 5-judge bench was talking about. on the one hand, he's talking about this thing called BBI as a state officer using resources, using our taxpayers' resources in the middle of a national event that should be celebrating the men and the women who brought about freedom in this country, celebrating every single Kenyan, to hijack the event to bring it back to BBI. What is that, if not a conflation of your role as a state official and trying to bring in the fact that you're a private citizen with a right to drive an initiative like BBI? If I started an initiative like that today, would I use Madaraka Day as a platform and state resources to popularize, bully, force, harangue, shove BBI down the throats of Kenyans, and most importantly and egregiously, continue to threaten the judiciary?
How do we answer the question, though, that the president is a Kenyan? He deserves a right. He doesn't lose his citizenship when he's the president of Kenya, that he still has a stake in this country. How do we answer to that question?
He has a stake, but he is the elected president of the Republic of this country. So he moves over to a set of functions that accrue to him as head of state. His private citizenship, he can put his hat back on when he leaves, by the way, which is August 2022, and he can start whatever initiatives he has in mind then. But he cannot willy-nilly pick and choose when he wants to be a private citizen and say, I have a right to, because not every single Wanjiko in this country has the same access to the instruments that he has as the head of state to drive such initiatives. And that is why the 5-judge bench made a clear distinction. It said you cannot dabble here, dabble there. Article 256 and 257 are distinct for a reason, or else they'd be one and the same. And this is where they said he has the recourse to use a parliamentary process. But why he was using the private citizen route is because he was trying to bring in his space as a constituent member. You know, they have constituted power as parliament and him as the head of state. But the sovereignty, as he keeps saying, comes back to us. But he cannot dabble. He cannot dabble, and the court is clear. But if he were to be allowed to dabble, then there'd have to be a whole nother set of parameters. But this is why the BBI is steadily marching on, despite the ruling by the judges, saying it is wholly unconstitutional and unlawful. They are determined through the Court of Appeal by any means necessary. In fact, the hairs on the back of my neck stood when I listened to the president, because I say this is somebody who will stop at nothing to have his way. The judiciary be damned, all processes be damned. We are here to tell you that if you do not accept BBI, you're an enemy of development, you're an enemy of the people. What is that if not intimidation? What is that if not intimidation? What type of unity are we speaking to as a people of the Republic of Kenya if we will be bullied by the head of state into accepting a process that has been declared unconstitutional and flawed?
Which is appealed. Mordecai Mwalimu, the question of where Rotich leaves it, that at the point where the president and BBI says, look, if you're opposing it, give us a different version, all right? Give us solutions to the chronic issues that face this country, the questions of electoral injustices, the question of, you know, how we are not developing wholly and fully, the question of tribalism, if you like. Give us solutions, all right? Just not oppose it. Isn't that a fair ask?
I think it's a bit of a flawed argument, because it's what my friend Wandia Njoya came up with the term for. It's called solutionism. The solution, if you're eating something that's bad for you or maybe poisonous, and I tell you, you need to stop eating that. You should not demand that I give you ugali so that you stop eating poison. You need to stop eating the poison. Then we sort out what we are going to get something good to eat. And the fact is, development is being brought piecemeal. All the wonderful, and I admit the wonderful developments that have been brought to Kisumu and the environs now, why are they being brought this year? Why weren't they brought in 2017 or 2018? Are we implying that the state is not obliged to develop all parts of this country, and there are certain hoops we have to jump through in order to achieve, in order to gain the resources that are due to us as taxpayers all over this country? And I've spoken to many people who say that I wish next year Madaraka Day would be held in my home area because it seems like a wonderful thing when it goes there. Development should go, nevertheless, with or without Madaraka Day being held there, because we've got 47 counties. Some will be reached in 2060 something, if that's the model we are going to follow. So I think we need to first of all make what we have good before we start throwing it out. And I think the things that are being brought through this, like the development that's spoken about, like the allocation of I think they want to send 35% of state resources to the counties. The current law says 15% is a minimum. If they want, they can even allocate 60%, because 15% is the minimum. So if you raise, if you say that you have to change the constitution to do this, it's that you're putting a condition. You are putting someone over a barrel to support you. You must, the state and the executive must offer services to the people, regardless of what the people stand on political issues. Politics is different, and right now we are having a very toxic mix of the two that frankly I do not see any good outcome out of. So I think let's implement to the letter what we already have before we start tearing it up and bringing it in. And also we are setting a very strange precedent. If this thing goes through, assuming something happens and it goes through, I do not for a second imagine that any incumbent head of state will leave office without changing the constitution in the future.
Okay, this interesting thoughts. I want to move to the next point of view. At 58 years, and we've seen it today in Kisumu with the passions and everything that comes with it. There's a sense in this country that many young people feel that they have a space and place, and finding creative ways, if you like, on how to get and be part of this country. So 58 years on, Gerald Sisit, as an active citizen, where would you say the place of young people is? What are the things that we can do, essentially, to make our country better for ourselves?
I think I would take that back straight to the Big Four that is supposed to have been implemented in these past number of years of the Uhuru and Ruto regime in Kenya. What happened with jobs? And I'm not talking about sweeping the streets for a pittance, and we hear there's so many scandals associated with that. When we say this is a time for young people, where are they? What space can they take for themselves? How are they able to come out and say, and by the way, 70% of the population is under what age? We are in the minority. I am certainly not a young person. I'm in the minority. Vast majority of those who are patronizing young people and saying, this is your time, we'll give you 7 years tax holiday. Come, I go to your timeline from time to time and I see people saying we can't register businesses, we can't afford electricity, we cannot set up any businesses in our little backyards because we have a rigged system against us when it comes to the ability to afford electricity, which is part of industrialization. Young people, we patronize them and say, this is your time. Bachelor of Education has just been abolished. It's not going to be there anymore. I mean, every place a young person looks, there's a door slamming in his face, a door slamming in her face, but we are still there saying young people are the future of tomorrow. In fact, when those 128 parastatal appointments were rendered illegal or judge deemed illegal by the courts, I loved it because I said, maybe it is time to put young people in these parastatal positions. We say they're the future of this country. We say they have the brains, and indeed they do. They're tech savvy, they're into ICT, they understand, they're musicians, the artists. Look at all of those who are performing today in Kisumu. They have a right to take space. But when you come back to things like BBI that are for the purposes of entrenching a particular succession of a political elite forever, we are effectively telling young people there is no future for them here in Kenya. Look at Saudi Arabia. How many young women are going out there to work? How many come back in body bags? How many are willing to risk their lives to eke an existence somewhere else? James, there is no future for young people in this country. And we keep lying to them and we keep patronizing them. and there is no future. There could be a future if we had the correct leadership. We don't have it. We don't have an enabling and empowering space for young people to come into their own. Not forgetting that these same people, some of them who fought for independence, were young themselves. How old was President Mwai Kibaki when he was in Lancaster? How old was he? They were very young people. But today, you almost seem to need to be over the age of 60 or 70 to approach any space of leadership. So I think we have to reorient our conversation around young people, because it is not pretty for them at all. And to reflect on what Mordecai had said about the 35%, go to the budget next month, which is being read. Is there 35%? Has 35% been allocated to the counties? If that was something that was supposed to be one of the things that BBI was bringing, they would have practiced what they preached in advance of the BBI passing, which it hasn't, because it has been deemed unconstitutional. So, James, when there's this whole mishmash of, so what about the young people? Let President Uhuru Kenyatta tell us about the young people. Today he was talking about macro projects. What about the young people? There was such a talented crop of artists performing today. I loved it. I enjoyed it. The vibrance of youth. Are they going to be paid? Are we going to be reading scandals in a few months or weeks that, oh, we performed and we didn't get paid? So there's a way that we weaponize youth against youth, and they never move forward. And they're caught in this cycle of despondence. And this is where we need good leadership to break that.
So it's Kenya at 58, and I'm seeing a lot of responses that is coming online. And Mwalimu, there's the space that we're in, and we've, I think, dissected very clearly the issues that we have and the problems that we need to get into. But the persistent question that I'm getting here is, we have two great minds here. What can we do with what we have? Mwalimu, the space that this country is, we know about, not only the architecture of this country and the opportunities and our vibrancy and, Kenyans being, resilient people. Young people asking, what can we do in our space today to make this country better? And 58 years on, what are the key important things that you'd say have not been defiled, for instance? That, we can say we have 1, 2, 3 places and spaces where we can push back, we can grow, we can do a business, we can, have arts and music and that sort of thing.
Thank you. Maybe I can speak from the perspective of my professional field, which is conservation of natural resources. We must take ownership of that. If I talk about the conservation scene in Kenya, it bows down and panders to the white gaze. We haven't yet taken ownership of our natural resources. And you can see the policy difficulties we have when we place wildlife in the same ministry as tourism. That's because we believe that our heritage is something for entertainment of people. Yet heritage is an aspect of identity. We've failed to utilize our natural resources properly because we are following these old models that were set up by people who needed to extract the natural resources. And we have minds that understand, and people who've studied these issues. But I'd like to, if you point to the age of Kenya at 58, there's a generation of who are around my age, and I'll say I'm in my early 50s, who have completely let down this country. That's why what I say should not be unique. But Mordecai Ogada is unique because most of my age mates are too cowardly to say anything that I say. And I'm talking about the qualified people, technically qualified people who know what we should do. So our hope lies in the youth. My hope lies in the youth because they question everything. They won't believe something because Mordecai said it. They'll go out and want to see it. But people of my generation will say what donors want to hear so that they can give some handouts and sponsor some conferences and pay out some per diems. Sounds very crass and rude, but it's the truth in Kenya today. So what we must do is we must empower people. We must put an engineer in charge of an engineering project. We must put a medic in charge of medical services. We must put educationists in charge of education. Then that's when we take control of things. Because if you put Mordecai Ogada, conservationist, in charge of banking, it's as good as taking an illiterate person and putting him in charge. We both know nothing about banking.
Great.
But that serves the system by keeping people powerless, keeping people insecure, so that they can kowtow to anything that comes around. So we must avert ourselves from the vision of those who want to exploit us. And that's the difficult part, mostly difficult because of the cowardice of the majority of my generation.
All right. Mordecai Ogada, say I'm taking a short break. We are talking on Kenya at 58 and the issues that are pertaining and in our minds in this country. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we will continue with this conversation. And quick question, would you know where to get oxygen cylinders if you need them? Would you? Me neither, but let's talk about it at the other side of the break.
Unaonaje hiyo gift?
Mmoja wetu hutufanya tuwe wa Kenya milele.
Kenya milele.
Did you know you can take up a funeral insurance, also known as a last expense, for your loved ones? Consider taking a funeral cover to avoid unnecessary stress and fundraisings when you lose a loved one. This policy covers funeral-related expenses such as burial fees, transportation costs, and grave preparation. Now you know. IRA, promoting insurance, protecting the insured.
Umefanya?
Kuhusu nini?
Usijifanye. Umefanya nini?
Unazungumzia nini?
Wale nimekutafuta.
Umenipata, niambie.
Tunaweza date.
Tumuuliza?
Where?
So, 2 months ago, Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe had a strange public address. He announced that there are Kenyans who are withholding oxygen cylinders and sort of begged them to return it. Do you remember that statement? This statement?
We have got about 20,000 oxygen cylinders that are out there in people's homes, that are in hospitals and other institutions. Now, these cylinders are required back to the industry immediately. And we are appealing to anybody who is holding oxygen cylinders to immediately return them.
So why would anyone withhold gas cylinders? It's one of those things that doesn't make sense in this country. However, what we do know is that these individuals and or the institutions are a powerful elite. Now that caught my attention was that it wasn't a handful of cylinders, it was 20,000 cylinders. Keep this number in mind, 20,000. So there are 20,000 oxygen cylinders out there kept by Kenyans. I know this news passed like a passing cloud, and I know that this was 2 months ago. Any other day, this news is an okay news to pass. But in the midst of a pandemic, this is big news. So I see your question, why should you care about oxygen cylinders? Well, here's the thing. The government is warning us about some fourth wave. The Indian COVID-19 variant is also here.
We are not out of the woods yet. We have still got new variants coming from different parts of the world. As you are all aware, now there is the Indian variant that is also approaching our borders. We have detected a few here in the country.
That's scary, right? But a straight answer to your question as to why you should care about this is India. Yes, India is your answer. So here's a quick rundown of what happened in India. when the deadly variant hit the subcontinent of India, a severe shortage of medical oxygen ensured that patients who needed oxygen therapy died. At the height of this India COVID-19 surge, more than 2,000 people were dying daily. Several hospitals ran out of oxygen. Families sent out relatives on wild goose chase for the oxygen cylinders, faraway towns. It was just a complete mess, and the world watched helplessly in complete horror. So we already know how our ICU facilities here in this country are stretched in the third wave, so it's important to put India into a context, our context. Severe COVID patients with hypoxemia, which is an abnormally low level of oxygen in the blood, need oxygen therapy. Anyway, back to our story. Remember the number I told you to put in mind, 20,000? So I wondered to myself, these Kenyans holding on to gas cylinders, who are they? And why are they doing this? And I wanted to find out just how many oxygen cylinders, do we have in this country? Any clue? 20,000, 23, I don't know. If the minister made a big deal out of 20,000 gas cylinders, what's the total count of these cylinders? The whole of Kenya boasts of, here's your answer, 50,000 medical oxygen cylinders. 50,000. That's not great. That's awful. You know also what's not great? That we have a 16% production capacity for oxygen, medical oxygen in the entire country. The oxygen demand without COVID stands at about 410 tons. Well, this need has doubled since COVID to 880 tons. You know what all that means? Is that if government is right with that prediction of the fourth wave, the need for medical oxygen cylinders will likely more than double what we have currently. We can't help ourselves. All this begs the next question that you're asking. Why aren't we producing more oxygen then? Since we know we have a massive shortage. I mean, this is something that government should do, right? I'm glad you asked. So here's the second part of this story. Now, the largest producer of oxygen in the country is this company, BOC Kenya, or BOC if you like. This company was established in 1940. The company product ranges from bulk gases, oxygen, nitrogen, liquefied petroleum or LPG gas, packaged cylinders, gases engineering services, medical equipment, construction of medical, and many, many other things. BOC Kenya owns the only air separation unit. This is important, the only air separation unit, ASU. Think about that in Kenya. The only company. The company's ASU unit, capable of producing liquid gases to a purity of 99.95%, including medical grade oxygen. So these guys are only hope, right? But the company has had a problem. Its only ASU plant was installed 38 years ago. The estimated lifespan of a plant is 35 years. The performance rating of the plant is relatively poor currently and declining over time. To be clear, the capacity of this plant, it's an all-time low. So that explains why our oxygen production is at 16%. As per BOC Kenya annual report, the company spent over 160 million on electricity supplied by KPLC. BOC Kenya management estimates that the replacement cost of the plant is about 600 million and will take up to 2 years to procure and install. Make no mistake, BOC Kenya is a critical installation as the most significant player in the highest quality medical oxygen gases market. However, the company's fortunes have been on a consistent decline over the past decade. So BOC Kenya has not made any significant new investment to expand or replace its aging medical oxygen producing equipment on one hand. The firm's major shareholder, BOC Holding of the United Kingdom, decided to opt out of the Kenyan market, selling its shares to anyone who wanted, and at this time was a local listed company. And now here's where things get interesting, if you like. A buyer shows up, Kabasid Investment PLC and Aksaya Investment LLP. They offered to take 100% of the issued share capital of the BOC Kenya. The transaction is valued at a whopping 1.2 billion Kenya shillings, and the Kabasid agree on this sale. But as the offer is still open, and instead of putting a proposal to buy the company, the former chairman of BOC, one Mr. Ngugi Kiuna, who owns 7.6% of BOC, appeals to the Capital Market Authority. Now, he did not put a bid, he appeals. The Capital Market Authority tell him the buyer and the seller have agreed, unless he has a proposal or a counter proposal, the deal is as good as done. He appeals this decision to a body called the Capital Market Authority Tribunal. This is good, right? Well, this is due process, the only hope of this country. So this tribunal, however, has a problem. The tribunal has never sat for 2 years, and it is not properly constituted. The effect of that is that the sale of this critical investment and institution is stopped. Here's the thing. That's corporate wars, someone says, market issues, some would say. But can we surely agree to play money games on an issue that is literally life or death? No need to produce more oxygen. Now, just before Mutahi Kagwe told us that Kenyatta National Hospital oxygen plant has not been operational for 20 odd years, Mr. Ngugi escalated this matter and has headed to the court. Here's the lowdown. And this is Smart Point. This is a matter has definitely been delayed. Best bet is forever. So pray that fourth wave that the government officials are telling us daily about, it passes us by without any of us needing medical oxygen. That's your Smart Point. So, we are 58 years. We need to run, the positivity that we need to take us to the next 58 years, because people who are watching are thinking, what else, can these public intellectuals, and great minds, Daktari, Mwalimu, Mordecai, with all your big brain, Jerotich, active citizen, what is it that is great in this country? Sorry for putting you on the spot. What is that is great in this country that we can put a positive spin and say, look, as Kenyans, I would start. When I travel in this, in this continent, I feel great when I get back to this country, personally. I don't know about you, all right? But let's start with you, Mwalimu. What's great in this country that, Kenyans who are watching can say, we have something to be proud of, something to think about, and something that we can push together with?
The greatness of this country lies, and I'll refer back to Professor Ngugi, it's in its people. And I'd maybe add a bit more detail and say it's the resilience of Kenya's people. And in many ways, we are resilient, we are cheerful, we are welcoming, and we are kind in spite of the people who lead us. And I think that is sort of the invincible core of Kenya, that the political storms come and go, but Kenya remains. The people who talk to each other, who pull each other up, who buy milk from the neighbors' cows, or buy vegetables from the neighbors' farms, and this kind of thing. This is what keeps Kenya going. And it's really sad to me that even those who are tasked with selling this country's image, they sell everything about this country except its people. The only thing that's unique to this country, other than the physical features, is its people. If we go selling wildlife, a lion's a lion in Botswana or South Africa or wherever it is. So what's special about Kenya is the people who live close to those lions and how they live with those lions, for this as an example. So we must come back to the people, and I think our government must value the people. Right now, we are treated as commodities, to be taxed, to be exploited, to do labor, and even exported for labor. You see a lot of people talking like that we need to export more labor. Yet this country is in such dire need of technical expertise, of human resource which we have. And we must learn to value what we have and use it to make ourselves great. We cannot make ourselves great by begging from others, borrowing from others, and just building things that will be managed by others and are supposed to look good for others. Mm-hmm. It's about us. We are the most important thing about this country. And I'm encouraged because of the demographics, and the majority are these young, brave ones. Those of us who are old and cowardly are now getting into the minority, so we'll soon be out of the way. So I'm encouraged about the future. because of that strength and power I see now.
Right. So if you look at the future, and you know, today someone, you know, did, you know, very great piece, you know, on Twitter and Instagram where, you know, she put together the Kenyan flag in the formation of a rice, and then, you know, did a fantastic video that has been trending today. The Kenyan future and the young people and the intelligence and the creativity is something that is one of. If we were to forget for a minute all our other problems that, you know, bedevil us in terms of governance and our politics that we all agree can be problematic, what are these things that for you, Jorotish, as you see to say, these 1, 2 things, you know, I look forward to because I know in spite of, has been for many people, in spite of our governance, in spite of our infrastructure, we're making it and we can make it. What would those things be for you?
First of all, James, just to say, and you call me and I call myself an active citizen, it's because I love this country. I love Kenya. I'm a Kenyan. I have lived and worked and traveled across sub-Saharan Africa with many other countries that I also love and have enjoyed working in and around. But there's something about Kenya. There's something that even though I'm a humanitarian and development specialist and could disappear into my rabbit hole of work all over the world for the rest of my life, I call myself an active citizen because I feel that more of us, including my generation in their late 40s, who have abdicated that responsibility and sacrificed it on the altar of a new car and a new house and more money to say, actually, let's come back to basics. I sounded very pessimistic when I talked about the fact that there is not too much hope for young people today. But if we are to look at solutions, and please don't ask me for solutions, BBI, those types of things, what's your solution? No, that's not where I'm going. If you're looking at solutions, there's the macro space. You were talking about oxygen right now. It is the space of intrigues and corruption and mismanagement that create spaces that, for example, in the health sector, that tomorrow one of us will be sick and we won't be able to access oxygen at all. So every big or every macro piece of corruption has an intimate impact on our lives. There's also the issues of electoral justice that I spoke about earlier on, and where I come from, which is Linda Katiba and Tekeleza Katiba. But granular, what does that mean? Number one, if you want to make this place a better place for young people to thrive and survive, lower the price of electricity. That's why we push the Switch Off KPLC campaign for energy justice. Make it possible for us to industrialize. Make it possible for people to run their businesses in a way that they can afford. Ditto fuel, ditto gas. NYS is a looting machine. So many people have seen it not as a space where young people can go to be empowered further, to work further, and to build certain skills that would make them employable, help them eventually generate their own income. No, NYS is a place where people go and steal money, and that money disappears. We never talk about it again. HELB. Why don't we forgive HELB loans completely? Why don't we make it easier for people to register businesses? Even the intrigues you're discussing, capital markets, etc. Who wants to do anything in Kenya before you have jumped through all the hoops and the punishing, punitive tax regime, the impossibility to borrow money? We have made this one massive obstacle race for anybody who wants to get ahead. And very importantly, promotion of the arts. And I'm not talking just about arts in terms of the singing and the music and the dancing and so on, but a space where the arts are cherished and respected, because that creates the ability to think outside boxes, to innovate. In fact, Professor Ngugi wa Thiong'o in 1972 wrote on the abolition of the English department, a very powerful and seminal piece where he was asking us to decolonize even how we are learning and thinking, and strip everything that was given to us or imposed on us by the colonialists into a space where we are patriotic, we are proud, we understand ourselves, we're innovative. The arts is very important there. So look, there's a lot of hope. There's a lot of opportunity for us to turn this country into the space we want it to be, where our children and our grandchildren can live and prosper. And for that, I always come back to the fact that we must respect the rule of law. implement Wanjiko's constitution fully, because the Constitution of Kenya 2010 was Wanjiko's constitution.
Yeah.
That is why there is such a huge push to subvert it and overturn it, because it was not an elite compact.
Yeah.
It was a people's compact. And this is something that we must continue to push for, even as we get pushed back, even as we are intimidated, because by creating that safe space for Kenyans to exist where they know justice is their shield and defender, only then can we take the country forward and allow for a new crop of leaders and allow for us to be prosperous. As we said, we wanted to eliminate ignorance, disease, and poverty. 58 years on, we are not yet there. But we can get there, and we need more Kenyans to believe that this is possible.
This is possible. Monica, you have, need to wind down now, a minute for you. The space where we live, and you know, currently, like I said, there's many things for us to be happy about, and Jyotish has mentioned some, you've mentioned others. If you're to project the next 58 years, for the next Kenyans who are going to be here, and those who are listening, for us to start building on that, what would be like the 2-3 key things for you that you'd say they're important and we need to build on those as you make your final remarks?
Yeah. First of all, we have to build on how we manage our natural resources. We have to stop fragmenting them. Like you find there's different agencies for managing wildlife and different agencies for managing forests. Yet these things don't exist in isolation. We must create logical structures to take hold of our natural resources, because unlike many other countries here, we depend pretty directly on them. The water I use is from the nearby river. So we must take hold of that and remove tourism from that. Secondly, we must learn to use skills, to deploy skills. Our system must learn to deploy skills. Right now in Kenya, if you have skills and knowledge, your best way forward is to hide those skills and knowledge. We have young people trying to get into our security forces with certificates which are Bs, and they are forging Ds so that their brightness cannot be detected by the recruiters. We cannot have that. We have to have a place where people work and are proud of their work. So I think we must learn to utilize our skills and place them in the right place as a nation. Then we will grow in leaps and bounds. And we do not need the foreign inputs that we constantly have, even in our policies. And whenever we want to develop something, we must learn to develop within ourselves, because things that are developed on foreign blueprints will always serve foreign objectives. But I think this thing has run its course. These misdeeds have run their course, and they're now collapsing under their own weight. So we need to be ready to take the place of the vacuum that will occur when all these misdeeds collapse, which I think will be in the next couple of years. Because we can't go on like this. Something's got to give. But we are resilient people, and I look forward to that day when things we see are real and are functioning and are genuine.
That is for you.
With all due respect, James Smart, thank you for having us here. And I think this type of candor is what we require in order to, investigate and dig deeper into the things that actually ail us. So, like I said, with all due respect, at the very beginning of this show, It is not yet Uhuru, and we look forward to a time when every single Kenyan, when Wanjiko is able to fully enjoy the benefits of being a citizen of this great republic.
Mordecai Ogada, scientist and public intellectual, thank you very much for your thoughts this evening. We have loved the candor and love your brain. Please come again and again. We will expand this space so that we have more voices.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. As a Jyotish Renee, humanitarian, 20 years experience, active citizen. Please
thank you.
Come again and again and again.
Thank you so much.
Loved and enjoyed this company. Have you ever received a text from an unknown number asking you to send cash or asking you to share your number or other private details? Some will even tell you that you are a winner in some gaming show that you've never participated in. Many Kenyans fall for such scams. And much as some of us are able to see through the conmanship, some of us fall for it and give these swindlers a running market. So, like we say on the internet streets, stay woke. How? Well, it may sound basic, but it should not be overlooked. First, do not share any of your personal information with anybody, and that is why you hear of phrases like pin yako, siri yako, your pin is your secret, loosely translated. If you did not take part in a competition whatsoever, don't fall for it. Also, if it's a message on your cell phone, contact your mobile network company straight, direct. Don't lose, yourself in it. Now, this segment that you can be part of, calling out any kind of wrongdoing and help keep your neighbors safe. Let's keep all of us safe, because, as they say, this is Kenya. Send us the details on our social media at James Smart and NTV Kenya platforms, and tell us what hits you and what you like to think and what this space means for you. I invite all of you as we move forward, we build this space for all of us. All opinions are welcome. Kanda, all I demand, all I ask for simply is come defend your point of view. With all due respect, my name is James Smart. Have a great night.
This is NTV.
Unaonaje hiyo gift?
Hutufanya tuwe wa Kenya milele.
Kenya milele.
Weka Collabo na Shell, Shinda Fuso FI is back and bigger. Every time you visit Shell and Weka a collabo of Shell Fuels plus Shell Lubricants, Africa's or Shopata convenience stores, you stand a chance to drive off with one of 5 border borders up for grabs. What's more, one lucky winner will drive off with a brand new Mitsubishi L200 double cab in 4 weeks and stand a chance to win the grand prize of a Fuso FI with 2-year warranty and 5.5 kilometers per liter fuel efficiency, plus thousands of instant prizes,
10 daily winners of 5K vouchers, 400 daily winners of 100 bob airtime.
Weka Collabo na Shell, Shinda Fuso FI. Weka Collabo na Shell Fuels plus Shell Lubricants, Africa's or Shopata convenience shop. To enter the draw, dial *384*200#, enter the code from your voucher and follow the prompts. Terms and conditions apply.
Kuna umefanya?
Kuhusu nini?
Usijifanye. Umefanya nini?
Unazungumzia nini?
Pale nimekutafuta.
Umenipata, niambie.
Tunaweza date.
Tumuuliza?
The World Athletics Under-20 athletes are the next big names in sports.
Is astonishing.
Be part of their growing pains and glory in wins.
One of the great Olympic moments.
A new world record. It's been obliterated.
Witness greatness in the making live on NTV.
And a fantastic finish.
Setting the pace for the nation.
Unscripted with Grace.
She refused to breastfeed me. Yes.
She said, oh, it's a girl.
Yes. I mean, this was a woman who was forced into marriage. So I guess I was just the trump card that failed. I didn't know that I was carrying rejection wounds. One time we were watching TV, and then there was this guy who was talking about rejection, and I looked at the TV, almost like as if I was looking at someone from the outside. I'm like, do you know that thing is very difficult? And my husband looked at me and asked me, do you know it was so hard to live with you the first 6 months of marriage?
Join Grace Msalame this Saturday from 8 p.m. only on NTV.
Unaonaje hiyo